In this video, I will walk you through how to use the entity framework from within a library project in Visual Studio. To begin, we will create a new project. In this type, we will create a Windows Forms application. And I will name this EF within DLL. So the first thing we will do, this is a standard Windows application. The first thing we will do is we will add a class library. So a new project of type class library. And I'm just going to accept the default name here. And well, we don't need this demo class that I created. So I have a database called Northwind, which you can download at the link that I've specified in the tutorial. I will add a new item to the library of type data, and it's an ADO.NET entity data model. And I'm going to call this Northwind. Generate from database is fine. So here I'm going to create a new connection of type SQL is fine, and I will use localhost and SA password, and I will select the Northwind database. Test connection, yep, it works. So what I want now to do, it will create the entities object, and it will also create an app.config file. So I will select yes, include the sensitive data in the connection string, and save entity connection settings in app config as this. So next. Next, I want to choose all the tables in this case. We could also include all the views and stored procedures. And stored procedures also in this case. We can include all of them, even though I'm not going to use all of them. Okay, so the next step is to click finish, and it will go through and it will generate the tables, views, and stored procedures. It will generate classes for each of them. So here's once everything is said and done, here's what you'll see. You'll see a diagram of all the tables that are in this database. And if you look at the class library, there's a Northwind project, EDMX, if you might. And if you expand the northwind.tt, you will see all the classes for the various objects. The one I'm interested in is the employees object. So what I'm going to do now is take a look at the app config file. Notice here it has a connection string for Northwind database. Now there's one piece of information that we have to change, and that's this. Inside of this string, you'll see a ampersand quote. You have to replace that with a single quote. And the same for the ending. You have to change that to a single quote as well. And that's it. So now that we have this entity framework access, we will go to our regular Windows application here. And let's just drop a combo box in here. And we will reference the class library that we have. And there's a couple of different things that I'm going to have to reference here. One of them is the entity framework. So I will have to first get the path to this class library here. Actually, let's expand the references folder and find a path to the entity framework DLL. And I'm going to have to reference this DLL in my Windows project. So it's going to say OK. Alright, and so here now I have the entity framework. The other thing that I need is system data entity. So let's look at the assemblies here. System data entity. I'm also going to reference system data entity and system entity design. The entity framework uses that. The other thing I'm going to have to do is right click and add a new item. And this is a configuration file. And I'll click add. And we're going to have to copy everything that we have in this file, the app config that came with our class library, and copy it here. Okay, and now we're ready to access our library. So here on the form, I'm first going to create a variable. First let's add a using statement to our class library. And then here I should have a Northwind entities object. I will call this LO Northwind. And here, let's first initialize this object to a new Northwind entities object. And I will list the employee. I'll create a list of employees. I'll call it employees equals to LO Northwind dot employees dot to list. And what this does is it grabs a list of all employees in the database from the employees table. And my combo box, I'll set the data source of it to LO employees. And also let's set the display member to first name. So that's all the code I need. Let's compile it first to see if everything compiles correctly. And it does. So we will now run this Windows application to see if we get any results. Alright, it looks like we got all the names from the database. So our entity framework is now working within the class library, and we're good to go. Now, one point of caution here is when you set the run type to debug, it actually references the app config file that's residing within the class library right here, which may or may not be the same as the app config connection string that you've put inside of your Windows application. But as soon as I flip the switch to release, it now fetches it from the place where it references the class library, so which would be here. So when I run it now, this time around, is getting the connection string and the information from my Windows application form. So be careful when you reference the library. You have to have this information in both places in order for this to work. That's all I have. Please subscribe and leave any comments or questions you may have. And thank you for watching.